You two need to come with me.
Why? What did we do?
Just standard procedure. Let's go.
Believed the badge gave him permission to decide who mattered and who didn't. Sergeant Derek Grady had worn that belief like armor. When he spotted the black teenagers cruising through his district in a car far beyond what he thought they deserved, he made a decision for them. Their night would end in handcuffs. Evidence would appear where it was needed. Tears would be ignored. Pleas would be mocked. What Grady failed to do was something simple. He didn't check the plates. He didn't look at the registration. And within minutes of locking them in a cell, he would realize he had just destroyed his own life by choosing the wrong family. The late afternoon sun reflected sharply off the flawless hood of a restored 1967 Shelby GT500. The midnight blue paint gleamed, split cleanly by the bold white racing stripes that ran the length of the car like a declaration of pride. Behind the wheel sat 17-year-old Tyrell Banks, his fingers wrapped carefully around the polished wooden steering wheel, a mix of awe and youthful excitement tightening his grip. This wasn't just a car, it was history, it was legacy. In the passenger seat, his twin sister Tiana twisted the radio dial, laughing as her braids bounced lightly against her shoulders. The DJ's joke had landed. And for a moment, everything felt light. They were less than 3 miles from home, driving through the quiet roads leading back to the gated calm of Oak Ridge Heights. This wasn't reckless joyriding, this was a celebration. Their father had just surprised them with the completed restoration of the Shelby, a birthday gift that had taken 3 patient years to bring back to life, but parked in the shadow behind a billboard advertising divorce attorneys sat Sergeant Derek Grady, watching. To him, the Shelby wasn't a masterpiece, it was a provocation. Grady lowered his aviator sunglasses and tracked the car as it rolled past, the deep engine rumble vibrating through the air. He didn't see to honor students. He didn't see well-raised kids returning from a family milestone. He saw something that offended him. 2 young black teens driving a car worth more than his future pension. That's cute, Grady muttered, already reaching for his radio. Dispatch, unit for Alpha, he said, sliding his cruiser into gear. I've got eyes on a suspicious vehicle. Midnight blue Shelby GT500. Possible joyride. Might be stolen. Occupants don't exactly scream legal owner. He didn't wait for dispatch to respond. He didn't ask for confirmation. He didn't need it. In his mind, the story was already written. He flipped on his lights. Inside the Shelby, Tyrell's chest tightened as the red and blue reflections flooded the rearview mirror. You've got to be kidding me, he murmured, easing off the accelerator. Don't panic, Tiana said quickly, though her voice betrayed her nerves. We weren't speeding. We did nothing wrong. Just do exactly what Dad taught us. Tyrell nodded, pulling onto the dusty shoulder. He rolled down the window and placed his hands carefully on the wheel. Exactly at 10 and 2, his father's voice echoed in his head. Be calm, be polite, move slowly. Grady took his time exiting the cruiser. He adjusted his belt deliberately, letting his hand hover near his holster as he approached with a practiced swagger. This wasn't caution, it was theater. He stopped at the driver's window and looked down at Tyrell with a smirk that never touched his eyes. License and registration, Grady snapped, skipping any pretense of courtesy. Good afternoon, officer, Tyrell replied, forcing steadiness into his voice. My license is in my back pocket. The registration is in the glove box. May I reach for them? Grady laughed, short and sharp. Listen to you, all rehearsed. What? Your parole officer teach you that? Tiana stiffened. Our father taught him, and we don't have parole officers. Grady's head snapped toward her. Did I ask you anything? You want to spend the night in juvenile detention, sweetheart, then shut your mouth. He turned back to Tyrell. Step out of the car. Officer, I just asked if I said. Get out, Grady roared, ripping the door open. He grabbed Tyrell by the collar and yanked him onto the gravel. Tyrell stumbled, barely catching himself before Grady forced his legs apart and slammed him against the side of the Shelby. Don't touch him, Tiana screamed, unbuckling her seatbelt. Stay inside, Grady barked, pointing at her. Unless you want cuffs too. Grady patted Tyrell down with aggressive frustration, clearly irritated when he found nothing but a wallet and phone. He shoved Tyrell toward the cruiser. What am I being arrested for? Tyrell asked, panic burning behind his eyes. I haven't done anything. Grand Theft Auto, Grady said smoothly. This car's stolen. That's a lie. Tiana shouted, stepping out with the registration in hand. Here, it's registered to Anthony Banks. For a fraction of a second, the name registered. Then Grady's arrogance bulldozed over caution. He snatched the papers, crumpled them without reading, and tossed them into the ditch. Paperwork can be faked, he sneered, twisting Tiana's arm behind her back. Obstruction, resisting arrest, as he shoved both teens into the back of the cruiser. Tyrell's voice broke. Please, let us make one phone call. Our dad is expecting us. Grady slammed the door. Your daddy can bail you out if he's got the money. Grinning at his reflection, Grady pulled away, convinced he'd just made an easy collar. He had no idea he'd just started a countdown he couldn't stop. The ride to the 4th precinct unfolded in suffocating silence. Tyrell and Tiana sat shoulder to shoulder in the hard plastic seat, their knees brushing as the cruiser rattled over uneven pavement. No words were spoken. Fear traveled between them in shallow breaths and trembling hands. Tyrell stared forward, memorizing the back of Sergeant Grady's head, the blunt cut of his hair, the thick neck, the way he hummed along to a country song while casually dismantling their lives. When they arrived, Grady made sure the moment felt public. He dragged them through the bullpen with unnecessary force, shoving them forward whenever they slowed. Phones rang, printers whirred, officers typed reports or leaned against desks sipping coffee. A few glanced over with bored indifference, accustomed to teenagers in cuffs. But one person noticed something different. Desk Sergeant Holloway, a veteran officer with decades on the job, rose slowly from her chair. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the twins, their clean clothes, their confusion, the fear that hadn't yet hardened into resignation. She noticed Tyrell's pristine varsity jacket, the embroidered crest of St. Jude's Preparatory Academy stitched clearly on the chest. Grady, she called out. What's this? Grand Theft Auto. Grady announced loudly, puffing himself up. Caught them joyriding in a vintage Shelby. No way they own it. Did you run the plates? Holloway asked. System was down. Grady replied without hesitation. Didn't need it. Girl resisted. Tried to claw me. That's not true. Tiana cried. You threw our registration away. Grady slammed his palm on the counter. Enough. Book them. He bypassed juvenile holding completely, tossing them into a cold adult cell that smelled of bleach and old despair. He removed the cuffs only to shove them inside and slam the bar shut. Enjoy, he sneered. Maybe you'll remember who really owns that car. Minutes crawled, then more. Tiana curled onto the metal bench, tears soaking her sleeves. Tyrell paced, heart pounding, knowing Grady had taken everything: phones, paperwork, proof. Dad will find us, Tyrell whispered. He always does. Out in the bullpen, Holloway couldn't let it go. She reopened the system. The plates came back instantly. Anthony J. Banks. Her blood ran cold as the profile loaded. Chief District Attorney, former federal judge, known for dismantling corrupt cops with surgical precision. Oh my God, she breathed. She didn't confront Grady, she ran. Captain Miller barely looked up as she burst into his office until he saw the paper she slapped onto his desk. His face drained as he read. Where are they? He whispered. Cell 4. Get them out, he shouted, bolting upright. Now. But it was already too late. The front doors didn't open. They were thrown wide. The precinct went silent. Anthony Banks stood in the lobby, fury radiating off him in controlled waves. Two private security guards flanked him. A woman with a briefcase followed close behind, eyes sharp enough to bankrupt cities. You have 10 seconds, Anthony said calmly, placing his hands on the desk. Produce my children. Captain Miller came running. This is not a misunderstanding, Anthony continued coldly. It's a felony. As they moved toward the cells, Grady emerged laughing from the break room, donut in hand. Who let civilians back here? He scoffed. Anthony stopped. Is this him? He asked. Yes, Miller whispered. Anthony stepped closer, eyes like steel. You arrested my children. Grady's confidence collapsed instantly. Before he could recover, Tiana and Tyrell appeared. Behind Holloway, Tiana ran to her father, sobbing. Tyrell followed, bruised and shaking. Anthony saw the marks. Then he stood. You touched my son, he said quietly. And in that moment, the father disappeared, replaced by something far more dangerous. He took an instinctive step backward, his hand drifting toward his belt as panic finally cracked through his posture. It was the wrong move. It didn't read as authority anymore. It read as guilt. He was resisting. Grady said quickly, scrambling for control. I followed protocol. You threw my daughter's registration into a ditch. Tyrell shouted, his voice breaking. You told us our dad could bail us out if he could afford it. Anthony's eyes sharpened. The words landed and something dark settled behind his expression. You destroyed evidence? Anthony asked calmly. I didn't see any paperwork. Grady snapped, desperation pushing him louder. They're lying. Just kids trying to wriggle out of trouble. Anthony turned slightly. The woman with the briefcase stepped forward. Tablet. Already active. Laura, Anthony said evenly. You have this. Every word. She replied. I'm drafting filings for false imprisonment, assault, spoliation of evidence, and civil rights violations. Subpoenas are already going out for dashcam and GPS data. Anthony looked back at Captain Miller. I'm taking my children home. But understand this clearly, if that man still has a badge in an hour, I will dismantle this department piece by piece. Every rest, every locker, every cover-up. Miller nodded shakily. We'll handle it. No, Anthony said, guiding Tyrell and Tiana toward the exit. You already failed to. He stopped at the door and looked back at Grady, who stood sweating, silent. Enjoy your night. Officer, Anthony said, it will be your last peaceful one. 3 hours later, the bank's residence had transformed into a command center. Tyrell and Tiana slept upstairs after private examinations documented every bruise downstairs. Legal strategy filled the air. Bodycam footage played across a massive screen. Grady's voice echoed through the room, mocking, dismissive, cruel. Pause, Anthony said. The frame froze on Grady, tossing the crumpled registration into tall grass. That's destruction of exculpatory evidence, Laura confirmed. Felony. It pierces immunity. Dig deeper, Anthony ordered. Everything. Within minutes, patterns emerged. Prior complaints, similar stops, a contractor lawsuit, financial irregularities. Then the mayor called. Anthony answered on speaker. Suspended? Anthony laughed coldly. This isn't a staffing issue. It's criminal. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow. Let's settle quietly, the mayor pleaded. My price is his badge, his pension, a public admission. Try to bury this, and I'll add your name to the suit. Anthony hung up. Release the video tonight, he said. Blur my kids. Leave Grady in full resolution. By morning, Derek Grady woke to a nightmare. His face dominated headlines, millions of views, reporters on his lawn. Then the calls came. Suspension, asset freeze, pension threatened. The truth hit hardest when his burner phone rang. Vinny. The chop shop was exposed, the pattern uncovered. The Shelby wasn't profiling alone, it was greed. As officers knocked to collect his badge, Grady sat at his computer, searching not for defense, but dirt. He found nothing, because Anthony Banks had built his power on truth. And truth was coming for Grady next. Asterisk. 3 weeks later, the conference room at Banks, Carter, and Sterling felt deliberately inhospitable. The temperature hovered just above uncomfortable, the kind of cold meant to unsettle. Derek Grady sat rigidly at one end of the glass table, stripped of every ounce of authority he once carried. He looked diminished, thinner, paler, eyes hollowed by sleepless nights. The suit he wore was cheap and ill-fitting, purchased after his tailored wardrobe became inaccessible along with the house. The bank had already begun the process of reclaiming. Beside him sat his court-appointed attorney, a young public defender, named Paco, visibly overwhelmed and already regretting this assignment. The police union had vanished the moment rumors of a theft ring surfaced. Across from Grady sat Anthony Banks alone. No entourage, no associates. He didn't need them. A stenographer waited in the corner. A video camera faced Grady directly. This is the deposition of Derek Grady, Anthony said calmly. You are under oath, Grady scoffed, leaning back. Though his leg bounced uncontrollably beneath the table, Anthony opened a file. You claimed you initiated the stop for erratic driving, yes. The dashcam shows perfect lane control for 3 miles, Anthony replied, sliding a drive forward. Would you like to amend that? Grady hesitated. Maybe it happened before the recording. Noted, Anthony said quietly, and the registration. I never saw it. Anthony produced another document. A sanitation worker recovered it exactly where video shows you discarding an object. His prints are on it. Yours are as well. Grady swallowed hard. I must have dropped it. You threw it overhand, Anthony said. Accidentally? Paco leaned in. Don't answer. I don't recall. Grady muttered. Anthony closed the folder. Let's discuss the Shelby GT500. He said softly, in the last 2 years, you arrested 14 drivers of luxury vehicles. Charges dropped, vehicles seized, all towed by Vinny's auto body. Grady froze. Anthony slid a transcript across the table. Vincent Russo cooperated yesterday. He detailed the cash payments, the percentages, the texts. Paco stared at Grady in disbelief. This is a setup, Grady shouted. We verified it through bank records, Anthony said, holding up a spreadsheet. Your offshore account matches Russo's ledger. Anthony stood and moved behind Grady. You thought you were hunting rabbits, he whispered. You walked into a lion's den. The door opened. Derek Grady, an FBI agent, announced. You're under arrest. Grady collapsed against the wall as cuffs closed around his wrists. He searched Anthony's face for mercy. There was none. *6. Months after the traffic stop on Route 9, the air outside the federal courthouse vibrated with tension. Autumn had stripped Oak Ridge Heights of its summer warmth, but the case of United States v. Derek Grady burned hotter than ever. News vans crowded the streets. Satellite dishes pointed skyward like weapons. Protesters filled the steps, signs rising and falling in waves, demands for accountability, for justice, for an end to protection behind a badge. Inside courtroom for B, the chaos vanished behind heavy wooden doors. The room smelled of polished floors and restrained dread. Derek Grady stood before the bench. No longer the officer who once sneered behind dark glasses. He wore an orange federal jumpsuit that hung loosely on his frame. He had lost weight, muscle, and color. Shackles circled his waist, his hands trembling as if his body no longer trusted itself. He had pleaded guilty, not out of remorse, but because resistance was pointless. The evidence wasn't a case, it was a collapse. Body cam footage, financial trails, witness testimony. A criminal enterprise exposed from every angle. Judge Harold P. Henderson looked down at him, unmoved. You were given a badge, the judge said slowly, and with it, the authority to protect. Instead, you used it to terrorize, steal, and discriminate. Grady sniffled, wiping his face against his sleeve. I made a mistake, he whispered. I just want to go home. A mistake, the judge repeated sharply. No, you made choices. The judge's gaze shifted to the gallery. Anthony Banks sat in the front row, composed, immovable. Tyrell and Tiana sat beside him, older now, steadier. Tyrell wore the same varsity jacket. Tiana's eyes were calm, unflinching. Mr. Banks, the judge said, would you like to speak? Anthony stood. He didn't raise his voice. My children will heal, he said. But what this man did poisoned trust for everyone. We don't want apologies. We want safety. We want accountability. Anthony sat. Judge Henderson lifted the sentencing document. On all counts, I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison. No parole. The gavel struck. Grady collapsed, screaming as marshals dragged him away. Minutes later, the Banks family stepped into sunlight. Cameras erupted. Anthony guided his children past the noise to the curb. Waiting there was the Shelby GT500. Tyrell hesitated. Anthony leaned close. It doesn't own you, he said. You decide what it means. Tyrell took the keys. I'm driving, he said. The engine roared to life. They pulled away, passing the roadside where it had all begun. Tyrell didn't slow. The past stayed behind them. Justice had landed, and this time, it didn't miss. The nightmare ended where it began, on the open road. The Shelby surged forward, its engine cutting cleanly through the noise of cameras, sirens, and a system finally forced to answer for itself. Behind the Banks family, the courthouse shrank into the distance, along with the man who believed the badge made him untouchable. Derek Grady's downfall wasn't fast, it wasn't merciful, it was complete. What started as a routine traffic stop became the unraveling of an entire lie. A lie built on arrogance, prejudice, and the belief that power belonged only to those who carried it visibly on their chest. Grady didn't lose everything because he made one bad call. He lost everything because that call exposed years of choices he thought would never be questioned. Justice didn't arrive gently, it arrived with evidence, with truth, and with consequences that couldn't be outrun. The Banks family kept moving forward, scarred, yes, but unbroken. The predator was caged, the ledger balanced, and the road ahead belonged to them again. Because real power doesn't come from a uniform or a weapon. It comes from the truth, and the truth always collects. If you found this story powerful, make sure to destroy that like button. It helps the channel grow and tells me you want more high-stakes stories like this one. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think 25 years was enough for Derek Grady? Or should the punishment have been even harsher? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.